Yemen just fired a ballistic missile at Israel, and if you think this war was already spiraling out of control, you have not seen anything yet. I am Michael Turner, and what happened this morning does not just change the battlefield, it changes the entire equation of this war. This morning, March 28, 2026, at exactly 6:47 in the morning local time, air raid sirens tore through Beersheba, southern Israel's largest city and home to over 200,000 people. Residents jolted awake. Families grabbed their children and ran. Schools locked down within minutes. Hospitals activated emergency protocols. And somewhere high above the Negev desert, Israeli Arrow 3 interceptor missiles screamed upward to meet a ballistic projectile that had been launched from 200 miles away in Yemen, traveling at over 3,000 kilometers per hour. The missile was intercepted, debris scattered in open desert outside the city. No casualties, no structural damage. But here is the truth that every analyst, every politician, and every headline is either missing or deliberately burying. The interception is not the story. The launch is the story. Because Yemen's Houthi forces, the Iran-backed militia that controls most of the country, did not just fire a missile at Israel. They opened a fourth military front in a war that Israel is already struggling to manage on three. And that single act, that single launch from a country 200 miles away just made this the most dangerous moment in the Middle East in decades. I am going to walk you through exactly what happened this morning, who the Houthis are, and why their entry into this war is catastrophic, what Iran's real strategy is, and how perfectly it is working, why the American military is more exposed than Washington is admitting, what a ground invasion of Lebanon will actually look like, and what this means for your gas prices, your grocery bills, and your daily life here in the United States. Because this is not just a foreign conflict. This war is already reaching into your wallet, and it is about to reach further. Let's start with the details of this morning's attack, because every piece of it matters. Israeli defense systems detected the missile launch at 6:43 a.m. The launch origin was northern Yemen. The weapon was identified as a medium-range ballistic missile, most likely a Quds Zed variant, Iranian-designed, manufactured in Yemen with Iranian technical assistance. Capable of carrying a 500-kilogram warhead, range of 400 kilometers, which means it can reach anywhere in Israel from Yemeni territory. The missile flew north over Saudi Arabia. Saudi air defenses tracked it the entire way. They did not engage because the trajectory showed the missile would miss Saudi territory entirely. It was not aimed at them. At 6:47 a.m., the missile entered Israeli airspace. Israeli Defense Forces activated Arrow 3 interceptors based in southern Israel. Two interceptors launched. The first Arrow 3 missile struck the Houthi ballistic missile at an altitude of approximately 40 kilometers. The warhead detonated in the upper atmosphere. Debris rained down across the Negev desert south of Beersheba. Clean interception. Technically successful and financially devastating. Each Arrow 3 interceptor costs between $2 and $3 million. Israel just spent up to $6 million to stop one missile. And here is why that math matters enormously. The Houthis have hundreds of these missiles. They have been stockpiling them for years, supplied and funded by Iran. They can fire 1 per day, or 5 per day, or 10 per day, and it will cost Israel between $6 and $60 million every single time to stop them. And Israeli interceptor stockpiles are not infinite. They were already being depleted at a troubling rate after 29 days of fighting on 3 fronts. Now there is a fourth. Within an hour of the strike, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saraya appeared on Yemeni state television. He stood in front of a map of Yemen and Israel. He pointed at Beersheba, and he said clearly and deliberately, "This is the first operation. It will not be the last. The Yemeni armed forces stand with Palestine and Lebanon. We will strike the Zionist entity wherever our missiles can reach. Tel Aviv is within range. Haifa is within range. This is a warning. Israel's crimes against our brothers will not go unanswered. That is not a threat from a weak player. That is a declaration of war from a military force that has been preparing for this moment for years." Now let me tell you who the Houthis actually are, because most Americans have only heard the name in passing and do not understand the scale of the threat they represent. The Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, are a Shia militia based in northern Yemen. They have been fighting a civil war in Yemen since 2014. On one side, the Houthis, backed by Iran. On the other side, a Saudi Arabia and UAE-led coalition backed by the United States. That war has killed over 400,000 people and created what the United Nations calls the world's worst humanitarian crisis. But out of that brutal decade-long conflict, the Houthis emerged as something no one expected, a battle-hardened, technically capable, strategically sophisticated military force. They control Sana'a, Yemen's capital. They control the western coastline along the Red Sea. They control the missile launch sites in northern Yemen. And they have spent 10 years receiving, deploying, and perfecting Iranian weapons technology, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, attack drones, anti-ship missiles, kamikaze drones, underwater drones. The Houthis have a weapons arsenal that rivals some nation-states, and they have proven they know how to use it. In 2019, a coordinated Houthi drone and missile strike hit Saudi Arabia's Abqaiq oil processing facility, the largest oil processing plant on Earth. The attack temporarily knocked out 5% of global oil production overnight. Oil prices spiked 10% in a single day. The entire world felt it at the gas pump within weeks. That was the Houthis demonstrating what they could do to critical infrastructure. In 2016, Houthi forces fired anti-ship missiles at a UAE vessel transiting the Red Sea. Direct hit, severe damage. In 2017, they fired at a Saudi frigate. Direct hit, 2 sailors killed. Over the past decade, the Houthis have struck dozens of commercial vessels, tankers, cargo ships, military ships, demonstrating a consistent ability to disrupt maritime traffic in one of the world's most critical waterways. Now they are pointing all of that at Israel and at the global economy, because here is the geography that makes Houthi involvement uniquely dangerous. Yemen sits at the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the narrow choke point connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. 10% of all global trade passes through that strait. Every container ship traveling from Asia to Europe via the Suez Canal has to go through Bab el-Mandeb. Every oil tanker heading from the Gulf to European ports has to pass through those narrow waters. If the Houthis decide to target commercial shipping as an economic weapon, and their leader explicitly threatened this morning, the consequences are immediate and global. Ships cannot easily avoid Bab el-Mandeb without circumnavigating the entire African continent, adding 2 to 3 weeks to transit times and massively increasing shipping costs. Those costs get passed directly to you. The price of everything you order, everything that arrives by ship, goes up. And Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi made this threat explicit. In a televised address broadcast within hours of the Beersheba strike, he said, "Yemen stands with its brothers in Palestine and Lebanon. The Zionist entity is committing genocide. Yemen will not remain silent. We have launched our first strike and more will follow. And if necessary, we will close the Red Sea to ships heading to Israeli ports. We will blockade the blockader. We will strangle their economy as they strangle Gaza. A threat to close Bab el-Mandeb is a threat to the global economy. Full stop." And unlike many threats in this region, the Houthis have both the weapons and the demonstrated will to follow through. Now, I want to explain Iran's strategy to you because once you understand it, everything happening right now makes terrifying sense. Iran's approach to this war is not about winning a conventional military engagement. Iran does not need to win on a conventional battlefield. Iran's strategy is exhaustion, systematically stretching Israeli and American military resources across so many simultaneous threats that the entire defense architecture collapses under the weight. Think of it like this. Israel's air defense system is extraordinary. Arrow 3 for long-range ballistic missiles, David's Sling for medium-range threats, Iron Dome for short-range rockets. It is layered, sophisticated, and expensive. And in the past 29 days, Israel has fired thousands of interceptors across all 3 systems, defending against Hamas rockets from Gaza, Hezbollah missiles from Lebanon, and Iranian ballistic missiles from the east. Each Iron Dome interceptor costs between $40,000 and $50,000. Each David Sling interceptor costs around $1 million. Each Arrow 3 interceptor costs up to $3 million. Israel has been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on defense in the past 4 weeks alone. The United States is rushing resupply shipments. But manufacturing these interceptors takes months. You cannot just print them. So Iran's calculation is straightforward. If Hamas fires from Gaza, Israel expends Iron Dome interceptors. If Hezbollah fires from Lebanon, Israel expends David's Sling interceptors. If Iran fires from the east, Israel expends Arrow 3 interceptors. And now, if the Houthis fire from Yemen, Israel expends more Arrow 3 interceptors. 4 fronts, 4 different threat vectors, 4 different weapon systems, all being depleted simultaneously. And eventually the stockpiles run low. And when the next massive salvo comes, the coordinated one, the one Iran has been preparing for weeks, some missiles get through, and that is when the mass casualty event happens. This is not a theory. This is the explicitly stated Iranian strategy, articulated by Iranian military commanders in publications, in interviews, in speeches. The axis of resistance, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and Iranian forces, was designed precisely for this kind of coordinated multi-front pressure, and it is working. Let's look at where Israeli defenses actually stand right now. On the northern front, Hezbollah has fired over 8,000 rockets and missiles into Israel over the past 29 days. The pace is relentless. David's Sling batteries in northern Israel are running at maximum operational tempo. On the southern front, Hamas continues firing rockets from Gaza despite devastating Israeli air campaigns. Iron Dome batteries in the south are stretched. From the east, Iran has launched multiple waves of ballistic missiles and drone swarms. Arrow 3 batteries have been firing around the clock. And now from the south, Yemen is adding another vector, another direction, another drain on the same finite pool of interceptors. And Israel cannot easily solve the Yemen problem kinetically, which is a military term for going and physically destroying the threat, because the geography works entirely in the Houthis' favor. Israeli F-35 fighter jets have a combat radius of roughly 600 miles. Yemen is 200 miles away. Even with aerial refueling, sustained strike operations against Houthi missile sites in northern Yemen would require a massive logistical effort. Tanker aircraft, forward basing, overflight permissions, and Israel does not have reliable partners for any of that. Saudi Arabia, which has been fighting the Houthis for a decade and has every reason to want them destroyed, refuses to allow Israeli aircraft to use its airspace for strikes. Egypt refuses, Jordan refuses. So Israel faces a situation where the Houthis can keep firing into Israeli territory with relatively limited risk of Israeli retaliation. Asymmetric warfare at its most effective. The Houthis hit Israel. Israel cannot easily hit back. The attacks continue. The interceptors deplete. The pressure mounts. Now let us talk about the ground invasion that is coming, because it is coming within days, possibly hours, and it will be the single bloodiest military engagement this region has seen in decades. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced today that Israel is preparing what he called the most significant ground operation since 1967. The target is Lebanon. The objective is the destruction of Hezbollah's military infrastructure, the dismantlement of missile launch sites across southern Lebanon, the creation of a buffer zone north of the Israeli border, and the permanent elimination of Hezbollah's ability to fire into Israel. Israel has mobilized 400,000 reserve soldiers, the largest military call-up in Israeli history, more than during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, when Israel faced simultaneous attacks from Egypt and Syria. Tank units are positioned along the northern border. Artillery brigades are deploying. Special operations forces are rehearsing urban assault operations in environments designed to simulate Hezbollah's tunnel networks and fortified positions. But I want to be very clear about what this invasion will actually look like, because the official statements from Jerusalem make it sound like a clean, decisive military operation. It will be nothing of the sort. Hezbollah is not Hamas. Hamas is a guerrilla force, dangerous and determined, but operating with limited resources, degraded command structures, and weapon systems that are effective but technologically limited. Hezbollah is a professional military organization. It has 150,000 rockets and missiles, more than the combined arsenal of most European NATO members. It has advanced anti-tank guided missiles capable of destroying any Israeli armor. It has precision-guided munitions that can hit specific buildings in Israeli cities. It has a tunnel network in southern Lebanon that took decades to build, running hundreds of kilometers, with command centers, weapons storage, and fighting positions built to withstand Israeli airstrikes. And it has 30,000 trained fighters who have spent years preparing for exactly this scenario, many of them combat veterans from the Syrian civil war. The last Israeli ground invasion of Lebanon was in 2006. It lasted 34 days. Israel deployed significant ground forces. Hezbollah fought back with ferocity that surprised the Israeli military. The result was a bloody stalemate. More than 1,000 Lebanese killed, 160 Israelis killed, massive destruction across southern Lebanon, entire Israeli border towns damaged, and no clear victor. Israel withdrew without achieving its stated objectives. That was 2006. Hezbollah has spent the 20 years since that war rebuilding, rearming, retraining, and refining its tactics specifically to defeat an Israeli ground invasion. The weapons it has today are exponentially more capable than what it had in 2006. The tunnels are deeper. The positions are more fortified. The fighters are more experienced. Military analysts who have studied Hezbollah's current capabilities extensively project that an Israeli ground invasion of Lebanon in 2026 could result in Israeli military casualties in the thousands, Lebanese civilian casualties in the tens of thousands, and a conflict that could last not weeks, but months. While simultaneously, the Houthis keep firing from Yemen, Iran keeps launching from the east, and Hamas continues from Gaza. Israel would be fighting a ground war on one front while defending against missile attacks from 3 others. Every Israeli reserve soldier committed to Lebanon is a soldier not available elsewhere. Every tank in southern Lebanon is a tank not available for a scenario involving Iran. The military resources are finite, and they are being stretched to a breaking point. Now let me tell you about the American cost of this war, because 13 American soldiers have already been killed and 300 more have been wounded in the past 29 days. And this morning, 10 more American service members were wounded at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. A drone, Houthi or Houthi affiliated, hit a refueling aircraft on the ground. The explosion sent shrapnel through the hangar. 10 American airmen with shrapnel injuries. Non-life-threatening, the Pentagon says, but there is nothing non-threatening about American military personnel being hit at a base in Saudi Arabia. This is what American military exposure looks like right now. Bases in Saudi Arabia, bases in Qatar, bases in Bahrain, bases in Iraq, bases in Syria. The United States military is spread across the entire region in positions that are increasingly vulnerable to exactly the kind of drone and missile attacks that Iran and its proxies have been developing and refining for years. And the American people are not being told the full truth about any of it. This morning, the president posted on social media, "War going very well. Thousands more targets left, but we are in no rush. Iran is on its knees. Negotiations proceeding. Energy pause extended to April 6th to give talks more time. We are winning big. Let us evaluate each of those claims against the facts. War going very well. Iran activated the Houthis this morning to open a 4th front against Israel. American soldiers were wounded at a Saudi base. That is not going very well. Iran is on its knees. Iran has now sustained 29 days of intensive U.S. and Israeli bombing. Over 1,900 Iranians have been killed. Yet Iran continues to fire missiles at Israel. Iran continues to launch drones at U.S. bases. Iran continues to coordinate proxy forces across 4 fronts. And Iran continues to reject every negotiation proposal. That is not a country on its knees. That is a country absorbing punishment while executing a long-term strategy. Negotiations proceeding. The 15-point plan that was delivered through Pakistan was not a serious peace proposal. Iranian officials have described it publicly and privately as a surrender document. It demanded Iran cease all uranium enrichment permanently, dismantle its proxy network entirely, and provide full access to all military facilities. Iran rejected it without counterproposal because there was nothing in it to counterpropose. The gap between what Washington is offering and what Tehran would need to see to enter meaningful talks is enormous. Negotiations are not proceeding. That statement is false. Energy pause extended to give talks more time. The energy pause, the temporary hold on new strikes against Iranian oil infrastructure, was extended because the administration does not want oil prices to spike further before the next election cycle, not because talks are productive. Politically, the administration needs gas prices to stay below $4. They are currently at $3.91 nationally. If strikes on Iranian oil infrastructure resume and Iran retaliates by threatening the Strait of Hormuz, prices could jump to $5 or $6 overnight. The energy pause is electoral calculation, not diplomatic progress. And that brings me to what this war is already costing you personally. Before this war began, gas in the United States averaged $2.81 per gallon. Today, it is $3.91. That is a $1.10 increase per gallon. For a family with 2 cars that each take 14 gallons and each fill up twice a week, that is an additional $62 per week, $248 per month, nearly $3,000 per year, just on fuel, on top of grocery prices that are still elevated from previous inflation cycles, on top of housing costs that have not come down, on top of everything else that is squeezing American families right now. And if the Houthis make good on their threat to target Red Sea shipping, if they close Bab el-Mandeb or even significantly disrupt traffic through it, the price of everything that moves by ship goes up. Electronics, clothing, food products, manufacturing components. The American economy is deeply connected to global shipping lanes, and those lanes are now under threat from a militia in Yemen that the United States helped create the conditions for over a decade of mismanaged foreign policy. Let me give you the full casualty picture as of this morning, because the numbers should shock every American. In Iran, 1,100 people have been killed and more than 20,000 wounded in 29 days of U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. Among those killed, 4,000 women and 1,200 children. Those numbers come from the Iranian Red Crescent and have been partially verified by independent monitoring organizations. The actual toll is likely higher because Iran controls access to many strike sites. In Lebanon, 142 people have been killed, including 122 civilians, 42 of them healthcare workers. Over 1 million Lebanese have been displaced from their homes in the south of the country. In Israel, 19 civilians have been killed in missile and rocket attacks. 4 Israeli soldiers have been killed in cross-border engagements with Hezbollah. 5,092 Israelis have been wounded. And Israeli officials report 78,109 separate air raid siren activations since the war began 29 days ago. That means Israeli civilians have run to bomb shelters an average of nearly 2,700 times per day, every day, for 29 days. For the United States, 13 soldiers killed, 300 wounded before today, now 310 wounded. These are not statistics. These are people. And the war that produced them is not winding down. It is expanding. So where does this go from here? Israel will invade Lebanon. The military preparations are too advanced, the political commitment too public, the strategic logic too locked in for it not to happen. When it does, expect intense urban combat in southern Lebanese villages and towns. Expect Israeli casualties unlike anything the Israeli public has absorbed in decades. Expect Hezbollah to deploy its full arsenal. Expect a humanitarian catastrophe in Lebanon that will generate enormous international pressure for a ceasefire that neither Israel nor the United States will be positioned to accept. While the Lebanon invasion unfolds, the Houthis will keep firing, maybe 1 missile a day, maybe more, each one costing Israel millions to intercept, each one further depleting Israeli air defense stockpiles. each one forcing Israeli military planners to consider whether they have enough interceptors to handle a simultaneous Hezbollah saturation attack, an Iranian ballistic missile wave, Hamas rockets from Gaza, and Houthi missiles from Yemen all at the same time. Iran will watch all of this and wait, because Iran does not need to do anything dramatic right now. The strategy is working. The proxies are engaged. The pressure is mounting. The stockpiles are depleting. And eventually, the moment Iran has been preparing for, the coordinated multi-vector overwhelming strike becomes possible because Israel has run out of the interceptors needed to stop it. And through all of this, the American people will keep paying at the pump. Keep reading about American soldiers wounded at bases across the Middle East. Keep being told that we are winning, that Iran is on its knees, that negotiations are proceeding. None of it is true. Day 29, Yemen has entered the war. 4 fronts are now active against Israel. The Lebanon ground invasion is hours away. Red Sea shipping is under threat. American troops are under fire in Saudi Arabia. And the war is not winding down. It is winding up. I am Michael Turner. I will be here with updates as this develops. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now because the next 48 hours in this war are going to be critical. The Lebanon invasion, the Houthi follow-up strikes, the Iranian response to the next round of negotiations collapsing. All of it is coming fast, and I want to hear from you. Do you think Israel can sustain a 4-front war? Is there any diplomatic path out of this? Or has this conflict already gone too far to stop? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. I will see you in the next update.